without further ado, I want to let you know that Brittany, Rob, and I go back to like the early 25, 26, 27 time. We worked together at the after-school program at Grant School. Then Grant School was closed. And then I lost track of Brittany. And the next thing I knew, I was walking down the hill to serve dinner at Safe Haven once a week, just down the hill from where I lived. And Brittany was the executive director. So it's been a long time that we've known each other. We've worked together at Safe Haven ever since in different various ways. So, Brittany, go for it.
Oh, great.
I don't know if you need that.
Thank you so much, Jan. I will, can everybody hear me without it? No? Okay, perfect. Okay, then we'll go for microphone.
Right there.
Oh, I've got them too. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for having me here today. I know our time together is really short, and so I want to make sure to leave some time at the end. So the slides are going to go real quickly. There's sometimes an activity that we do along with these presentations, but again, because of the time and the size of our group today, we'll kind of skip over that part. But I would be happy to come back another time and we can work through that activity together. So as Jan said, my name is Brittany Robb. I'm the executive director at Safe Haven. I'm a lifelong Duluthian. I love it here. I'm so grateful to be a part of this community. And I was just telling Mary that I came back from a conference this morning where it was about 90 degrees in the Twin Cities. And let me tell you, you hit that crest coming over, and as soon as you can see the lake, I watched the temperature start dropping on the car and was so grateful for that. I am so happy to be a Duluthian. So Safe Haven has been around for just under 50 years. We were part of the original domestic violence movement and we're one of the first domestic violence shelters in the whole country, the second in the state. From our time as our humble beginnings from a hotline, we grew then into a 16-bed shelter. And our founding mothers really believed strongly in addressing domestic violence, not only from the perspective of crisis intervention, but also how can we move forward as a society and address the systemic issues also connected to domestic violence. So their brilliant wisdom all those years ago really guided us towards the model that we still use today, which is half of our services are directed towards crisis intervention, and then the other half are directed towards prevention, working with law enforcement. We have a really strong relationship with the court system, other organizations that work towards batterers intervention and all of those kinds of things too. So I'll talk just a little bit today about what domestic violence looks like. I think sometimes folks don't understand or realize how prevalent domestic violence is in all the different forms that it can take. It's not just physical injuries, it's emotional injuries. I'm working with someone right now who's been a lifelong victim of financial abuse and is finally ready to leave her partner, and she is facing homelessness because she has been so financially dependent on her partner. So it's been about 30 years that they've been together, and she's had enough and she's having a hard time figuring out what she's going to do next. So it looks different for everyone. And so we always give the disclaimer that there could be survivors among us today, or it could be, some of the things we talk about might really strike a chord with you and say, oh gosh, I think I may have a friend or a relative or somebody who's being affected by domestic violence. And so we just want to be really respectful of that. And if you need to walk away, I'm not going to take any offense to that whatsoever. We do this, these kinds of conversations and presentations all over the place. And, everybody's at a different spot in what they're trying to learn or gain or experience. So please take really good care of yourself if anything jumps out at you as being a bit too much. Okay. So domestic violence is a pattern of behaviors used by one partner to control another. So I just spoke a little bit about the financial abuse aspect. This also looks like when people are kind of using other mechanisms of control, like being very particular about who someone can visit with. If they start withholding the time that someone would normally spend with family or friends and saying, oh, you can't go visit that person, or, oh, I don't like how that person talks about me. And then it just kind of evolves from there. You know, it can become a little bit more isolating in terms of, well, now I'm going to put a tracker on your phone so I know where you are all the time. Or even we have a client that we're working with right now. Technology is both amazing and frustrating, as we've all experienced this morning. But one of the frustrating parts for us is that trackers can be applied to vehicles now, and no one would ever be the wiser. So folks are experiencing, you know, kind of power control and isolation in all different kinds of ways. We talked a little bit about isolation. Also intimidation, you know, making a lot of threats, doing those kinds of things. Economic abuse that we talked about. When folks have kids, it makes it much harder to leave a situation. Right now at the shelter, we are bursting at the seams with kids because school just got out. And so it's much easier for families to leave the situation when they don't have to think about school or providing some sort of explanation to the school about why the kids aren't there consistently and all these kinds of things. So we really do see quite a big influx right around this time of year of families coming in with their kids. And at Safe Haven, we provide services, both shelter and non-shelter services, to all genders. You know, we recognize that the feminist movement really uplifts everyone on the gender spectrum. And although domestic violence is primarily an issue that affects cisgender women, we do see all walks of life come into the shelter. We have a dad he has 4 kids, and he and his partner have been together for the entirety of the kids' lives, and it's not a good situation. It's a really abusive situation. And he comes back to us, you know, time after time, and every time he comes back, he gets a little bit more information and knows a little bit more how he can take better care of his safety and that of his children. And I think he's going to do it this time, you guys. So fingers crossed, he's going to make it. All right, so 1 in 4 women experience domestic violence, 1 in 7 men, and nearly half of all trans or gender expansive folks experience DV. 24 people per minute are physically or sexually abused in the US, and 1 in 15 children are also exposed. Also, domestic violence is the #1 cause of homicide for women who are pregnant or folks that have just given birth. Okay, the impacts of domestic violence are quite extensive. We recognize DV as a public health issue. And so we know that it causes long-term impacts for survivors. There's so much text on here. We're gonna just skip right through some of this. Okay, one of the things that comes up a lot in the work that we do too is really understanding that abuse is not the survivor's fault. I get questions all the time, you know, that reference, well, why doesn't she just leave? Or why didn't he just leave? And it's so hard because I don't think that there's anybody that would be in a relationship, go on a first date, get punched in the face, and then decide they're going to go back and carry on with that relationship. So it really is a process of really exerting control over someone over a long period of time. And so, by the time folks come to us or seek help, their sense of self has been really diminished. And they've experienced all different forms of losing their identity because it's been taken away from them. And so the response that I typically always give, because I can't help it, is, well, why did that person feel like it was okay to hurt another human or another individual? We think about, I just mentioned that we have a bunch of kids at the shelter right now. And a huge part of that is because it's hard to leave when you got a bunch of kids. It's hard to leave in the winter when you don't know where you're going to go. It's hard to go somewhere where you don't exactly know what to expect. It's hard to live in the shelter. It's just a fact of life. There's all kinds of different personalities there, as I'm sure Jan can attest to over the years. So it's such a difficult choice for folks to have to make. Okay, this is the activity I talked about. We'll do this another time. And one of the things that folks also ask me is, how can we support survivors? So that's what Safe Haven is here for. We are here to provide shelter 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, to anybody that needs it, as long as we have space. We also know that sometimes seeking services right away is not what that person wants or needs. They don't feel comfortable doing that. They have a strong enough network of support. Hi. And they want to just be able to continue to live their lives as normal as they can while still working through the DV. And that's why we rely on our friends and community partners to also spend this time that we're spending together today to better understand how to provide that support. So we always say this is so hard for us even to, it feels so clear and obvious what we think a person should do when they're in the situation that they are in. But it's so important to recognize that they are the experts of their own lives and their own safety. They've kept themselves safe as much as they can for as long as they've been able to, and now they're ready to reach out for help. And so we know that the choices that we make might not be the same choices that someone else is going to make, but we want to be really respectful of that and honor their choices so that they see us as a safe person, whether it's a friend or a professional. So when they are ready to fully sever that relationship, they remember that we are a safe space for them to do that. So we always want to just let them know that we are here for them. We also want to be mindful of the circumstances in which someone is presenting themselves to us. In our faith communities, in our community groups, in our social circles, the longer you get to know someone, you start to recognize what their typical habits are, what their typical personality traits are. You can feel their energy and what they're presenting to you. And if you think something is wrong, it's okay to say something and say, hey, I'm worried about you. You're not yourself. Just want you to know that I'm here for you. They may or may not disclose that to you, or disclose to you what they're going through. And if you are a person that can just compassionately share that space with someone, again, they are going to be more inclined to come back to you for the future. This is one that can be a little bit tough too, even for us that do the work every day. Focusing on the behavior and not the person. And so we really try to infuse person first language in all of the things we do. So we literally say the person and then whatever comes next. So, an easy example of this for me is always, I use my mother-in-law as an example because she's an unsighted person. And so I always say my mother-in-law who is blind instead of saying my blind mother-in-law. And we apply the same logic when we're talking about an abusive person. We always say a partner who has abusive tendencies. We never, talk to the survivor and say your abuser. We always say a partner who has abusive tendencies. And that does kind of also soften and invite the conversation a little easier. We also always want to talk about, how we see a person showing up. Like, hey, we want to make sure that you're okay. Like I said before, even saying things like, you're not yourself. Is everything going okay? What can I do to help and support you? And then we always want to support their decisions. There's one woman that we work with who's been coming back for both shelter and non-shelter services for as long as I've been at Safe Haven. And the last time I checked her, we keep a log, an unidentifiable log of each time a person visits us. And I checked about a year ago, and she was at over 80 visits into both the shelter and the resource center. And it's so hard for us to see her go back every time. But even though she's received her services all those times, we see that she's a little bit stronger than the time before. So we keep inviting her back for all of the things that she needs. So it's this, again, this is what I see every day, but someone might come to you, or you might see something happening in the community, you provide your support, and then they decide to go back. And that's okay. They're going to be the experts of their situation, and they're going to know exactly what's going to work for them and when. Okay. We also like to share that safety is, leaving is a process. It's going to take some time to have that, essentially be a permanent end to a violent relationship. The statistics still say that it takes 7 to 11 times for someone to leave their relationship permanently, but I can tell you from the work that I do, it feels much higher than that. Okay, safety planning is also a really important aspect of the work that we do, and then also the work that we like to share with other folks, because it's something that everyone can do. I've mentioned this a couple of times, that the person who is experiencing the harm understands how to navigate that better than we ever could. And so we always want to make sure that whatever plan they're coming up with, we're supporting their decisions and perhaps offering a perspective about what could look different, but not necessarily insisting that they do what we tell them to do. That is, again, survivors are in control. We want to support what they do. We always talk about planning before there's an emergency, so helping folks really strategize what that looks like for them. So if they are in a home where they're able to pack a very small bag of items and then kind of keep it stashed or stored somewhere to leave in a hurry, we like to recommend that. Other things that are practical, if they have copies of their birth certificates, we ask them to also put that in the bag or keep that in their car or somewhere else that might be accessible to them if they needed to leave. And then here's just some more information about how to help someone successfully safety plan. It can be quite extensive. And at the very end of the day, the most important thing to do is to believe what a survivor is telling you, because abusive partners do really unbelievable things. And so it might not be, anything that you've seen this person do, and you might know this person to be a really stand-up pillar of the community, and then at home they're having a different experience, and the people that they live with are having a different experience. So believing survivors is always the most important thing. Reminding them that they have not done anything wrong, they don't deserve this kind of treatment, and whatever has happened is not their fault. And those are certainly not used enough. We see that both in our work and in our community as well. So those are the takeaways from today. And then resources. I think, being here today and sharing this information with you has covered a lot of what we do in practice in the work. But the way that folks can access us are directly just coming right to the source. So our shelter is located quite near here, actually. We don't share the exact location for confidentiality reasons. That's our promise to survivors, is that we are not going to share the address. Of course, it's a small community. Folks know where we are. And that's okay. Our commitment is to not share the address. Our resource center, however, is located downtown, right across the street from the courthouse and City Hall. And the resource center, I know I'm a little biased, but it is one of the most interesting parts of the nonprofit community in all of Duluth, because the resource center provides a one-stop shop for survivors. So when survivors come to the resource center, they can tell their story one time. They can give the account of the abuse that they've suffered one time. And while they're with us, they can meet with law enforcement to make a police report if they feel that's important and they want to press charges. They can work with our advocacy team to file orders for protection and harassment restraining orders. They can take a shower if they haven't been able to take a shower. We have one client who's come back to us quite a few times, and that was one of the abusive tactics that her partner used, is that he wouldn't allow her to take a shower, and then he would tell her that she was dirty and gross and all of these things. And so she can come down and take a shower whenever she feels like it at her resource center. We have laundry services available too. A full kitchen for survivors to just come and hang out. They can bake, they can cook, they can make anything that's culturally relevant for them. We have computers there as well, so they can safely utilize internet services without being tracked by an abusive partner, so that they can't, partners can't go in and see their browser history on their personal device or on their computer at home. So that if they are making those plans to leave, they're able to do that really privately and confidentially. I forgot to move forward on that slide. So the other things that happen at the Resource Center besides just the basic needs are meeting with our self-sufficiency program. And okay, I have a little bit of a sad / proud moment. Our self-sufficiency coordinator just left Safe Haven to go and fill the role of executive director in Superior at the Center Against Sexual and Domestic Abuse, CASDA. So I am so proud of them. And also, gosh darn it, they did such great work for us. So we're currently hiring for a new self-sufficiency coordinator. And the job title is exactly what that program embodies. It is a way for folks to really start setting a course for what the next part of their life is going to look like. So lots of help with housing. I'm sure we all know that housing is a bit tough to come by these days, especially when you don't have a lot of resources. Working towards getting a GED or a higher education, building their credentials, working with the career force centers so that they can really enhance their skills, and then be independent of an abusive partner. We also have support groups at the Resource Center too for folks that have moved on from their relationship, but they still want the support of our staff and our community, so they come to support groups as well. And we have a fabulous youth program. So Jan had mentioned that she and I met each other through a youth program. So my background is in youth development, and it's an interesting path from there to where I am now. But youth development is always going to have a strong place in my heart. And so that's one of the programs that we started after I became the shelter supervisor at our shelter program quite a few years ago. And that program provides the opportunity for kids to firstly learn positive and healthy coping strategies so that they don't end up in a pipeline of repeating domestic violence patterns throughout their life. And then it also gives them the opportunity to just be kids. So a lot of kids are adultified when there's domestic violence happening in the home. And so they become, a third parent or a fourth parent or another adult that's expected to do a lot of adult things. So in our programs, we like to give kids the opportunity to just be kids. So in the summertime, we have a day camp. They go rock climbing, they go paddleboarding. This is so funny. This happens every year. We have law enforcement come in and have lunch with the kiddos so that they can start to see law enforcement as somebody who's helpful and not harmful. Because a lot of those first interactions that kids have when their parents are in a DV relationship is bad, because law enforcement shows up during or after an argument, and one or both of the parents are taken to jail, and then they get put into the system right away, and that's really traumatic. So we want kids to start to see law enforcement as helpers and not harmers. So law enforcement comes in and they make lunch and do lunch with the kids, and somehow it always devolves into this weird controlled chaos. And last year they had an arm wrestling competition with the cops. So it was everybody's favorite day of camp was to arm wrestle the cops. So none of the kids won, but they sure enjoyed themselves. Okay, and then I'll just go back to the shelter slide here. So our shelter is a big house. And we did a renovation a couple of years ago to be able to give folks more privacy and more space to heal. And it's going well, but there's never enough space and there's never enough privacy for folks. I mean, you're coming into a shelter. It's like, your first day of college and you go into a dorm room with a roommate you don't know, and a building you don't know, and a place you don't know. And then add on top of that the worst day you've had in your life. And then that's what it feels like to come into the shelter. But we do, like Jan said, she was serving meals for us for quite some time. So we provide healthy meals. It's not always what everybody wants to eat, but nobody's going to starve to death at Safe Haven. So we provide meals and snacks for folks. They have everything they need. All of their basic needs are met while they're with us. And then we do have advocates on staff 24 hours a day so that folks can come and meet with advocates and, again, just start helping them plan what their next chapter is going to look like. We have 911 phones that we get from a phone bank down in Florida, of all places. And they send us phones that are programmed to just call 911. So if they're in the middle of an argument, something terrible is happening to them, they don't have to fumble with the phone to dial 911. They press one button and it directly connects them to 911. And they're able to stay with us for 4 weeks. So that is a much longer story than we have time to cover for today. But 4 weeks is the maximum amount of time that folks can stay with us in the shelter. And then once they leave, they're always welcome to come back. Like I said before, 7 to 11 times to permanently leave. I think that's a conservative estimate. So we anticipate folks will come back time and time again, and we welcome that. And we are so grateful that they see us as their trusted partner to be able to leave their relationship. Okay, so we're at 10:03. Mary, how am I doing for timing? We have a couple of minutes for questions, more time.
Well, no, 10:15. 10:15.
10:15, okay.
You're doing well.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Other resources are, I mentioned CASDA. CASDA stole our advocate, and so proud. And Dabanugan also, now that I think of it, their shelter manager was stolen from us as well. So we must be doing something right. I hope so. There's also other services available for folks throughout the state. We work with a program that's called Day One. And Day One is the hub for all of the domestic violence shelters in the state of Minnesota to connect with one another. Because sometimes folks are in the Twin Cities and they're so enmeshed in whatever is happening in the Twin Cities. Maybe they are a partner of a law enforcement person who's abusive to them. And it's not safe for them to reach out for help where they're at. So then they come up here to get their immediate safety resolved and when we help them set a plan for, okay, what is it going to look like when you go back in 4 weeks from now? How can we help do some of that safety planning with you? Also deal with small community. Folks know each other. And so sometimes folks will call us for help and say, well, I don't want anybody else to know. And so we'll be able to connect them with another program through the Day One network. Day One is also really cool. I don't know how they do this, but if someone were to call their 1-800 number, their phone system automatically routes them to the closest program based on area code. So someone could be down in the Twin Cities for a visit and they have a 218 area code and they call for help and it'll come to us, even though they're physically down in the cities. So Day One is really great. They've been great partners for us. Fond du Lac Domestic Violence, or Fond du Lac also has a domestic violence unit. One specific officer and investigator that's dedicated to domestic violence services. He's great, lovely, wonderful human being. And then our United Way is a valuable resource as well. Folks can always call there and get information about us or anything else they might need. And then even though we know that it can be scary, law enforcement is always going to be the first step to keeping somebody safe in an immediate crisis. So we always want to give a shout out to our law enforcement partners too. Okay, so anything else that would be interesting for you to know, or any questions anybody has about what we do? Otherwise, I can just keep talking about Safe Haven and what we look like now and what we hope to look like in the future.
Well, my friend Will Munger would always ask, what can we do?
Yeah. Oh, yep. That is a great question. I think the number one thing you can do is exactly this. you show up because you care and you want to be a part of so many solutions to all of the problems that our community is facing. And so being here and being present and sharing this time and space with me really does go a long way. Of course, we're a nonprofit, and so financial donations are always very much appreciated. Folks that make meaningful gifts to us, sometimes that's $5 because that's what's a meaningful gift to them. That's going to hurt them a little bit to make that gift. But then we have some people that can give us $5,000. Like it doesn't even, they're like, oh, I just have $5,000 of discretionary funds. And I can tell you that is not me. Hopefully one day, maybe that could be me, but I work in a nonprofit. So, and then also volunteering too. Jan is just such a perfect example of volunteering and how far that goes. Folks in the shelter would always look forward to her coming to serve the meals because she's so kind. And so sometimes just having the kindness and presence, people can really feel that, and I believe that is, I heard one time that, that your body actually puts off the energy that you're feeling inside up to 3 feet away from you. And I can tell you, having worked in the shelter a long time, you can feel when somebody's not having a good day. And then someone like Jan will come in and brings the whole temperature down. So volunteering, I think, is a really important and special place where folks can really share their time and really support the work that we do. Yeah.
Thank you for being here today.
Okay.
So to volunteer, do you call the shelter
Mm-hmm.
and then they tell you what your current needs are?
Yes.
Wonderful. And hey, I just want to say you are growing, you are mentoring leaders. Think of that. No.
Thank you for saying
I
that.
am so proud of you.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
Oh, really? Look at that.
Yeah. Well, actually, that is helpful because I will use that approach now when I think about it. Now, like, oh gosh, darn it.
Yes.
Oh,
that's right.
Oh.
That's right.
Thank you for saying that.
I have one more question.
Yep.
So I heard, I came in a little late.
Mm-hmm.
People can stay at the shelter for 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And you said they leave 7 to 11,
Mm-hmm.
bowling at average times. Well, let's say it's 4 weeks and they're not ready to go back.
Yeah.
Do you have another step down unit or where they can stay?
Oh gosh.
Or do you call A1 and say, can we use your facility?
Yes. We used to have this fabulous program that, man, I know that the height of the COVID pandemic was not that long ago, but it feels like ages ago. And then also somehow just yesterday. And I don't know where in the world we had all this energy, but in 2020, we started a shelter remodel. And then we also opened a secondary shelter location that we called our extended shelter stay. And that was for exactly what you're describing. It's 28 days goes by in the blink of an eye. That's barely enough time for someone to catch their breath and then be able to take the next steps. So we had another program, our extended shelter stay, ESS, and folks could move from our crisis shelter to the extended stay shelter, and they could be there for another 3 months. So those were the most successful end of relationship tracks that I've seen folks endeavor on. We were renting the building and then the landlord sold it. And he didn't ask us if we wanted to buy it because we would have. So the building was sold. And it was kind of the perfect circumstance because it had 7 individual efficiency apartments. And so folks and their families were able to move in. And because they were apartment style, it didn't fall under the same umbrella of requirements as the shelter program did. So they were able to, cook their own meals, just essentially live their life and in a little apartment until they were ready to move forward. So we've been looking ever since, and there's not much on the market. And then there's not much available that would support our needs. So that's anybody knows of a building that has 7 or 7 to 10 individual efficiency units in it, call me up because that would be perfect. But in the meantime, we do maintain those really strong relationships with the other shelters. So CASDA over in Superior, Dabanugan here in town. And we also spend a lot of time working with CHUM as well, especially their family shelter. And so it can really be just a quick call to one of our partners. And depending on their space and their availability, because shelters have really strict guidelines that we have to follow about where and how many folks we can have in any given space, we'll just send people there. They'll send people to us. And we try really hard to work together in that capacity. And then sometimes when it's really, really bad, we'll rent a hotel room for a couple of weeks too. We have a small pool of funding that's specifically for hotel stays. So we can have someone stay in a hotel for a little bit of time as well. So we advocates are really creative. That's one of the things I've learned over the years is, if there's a problem, call an advocate because we will find a way through it or around it one way or another. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, Mary.
Are there supplies for other types of, because at work we do drives?
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes.
Do you have a list online?
We do. We have a wish list. And again, because of the restrictions that we have by Minnesota Department of Health is the entity that licenses us. And so we can only accept new clothing items and we have no storage space. We'd rather use our space for people instead of things. So most of our shelter spaces are dedicated to people, so we don't have a lot of storage space. But we do routinely keep all sizes of new sweatpants and sweatshirts and t-shirts because sometimes truly folks just come in with the clothes that are on their back. There was one mom, it was the middle of winter and her abusive partner had locked her out of the house. She went up to the car to bring in the diapers for her new baby that was just wearing a onesie and he locked her out of the house. And so luckily she had her car keys with her and she got in the car and then just drove straight to the shelter. And she came in, it was freezing cold, baby's in a onesie. And we had baby items for baby and warm blankies for them and some sweatpants and some sweatshirts that we could give her right away so that she didn't have to just be in her pajama shorts and a tank top and baby. So any kind of new comfy clothing items, we'll accept those as well. Folks do hygiene drives for us all the time. We have about, last year we had 672 people come through our shelter and we typically plan for about 500. And then some of those 672 came back multiple times. And so each time they come in, they get a hygiene bag that has full-size shampoo, conditioner, soap, body wash, any kind of those, toothbrush, toothpaste, all of those kinds of things. So whenever folks ask what supplies we need, it's always that. We go through a lot of pillows. Pillows are a pretty hot commodity. Twin size blankets and sheet sets are always in high demand for us as well. So any of those kinds of supplies are always welcome and needed. And we do have a wish list up on our website and our socials. We'll sometimes post a wish list Wednesday item for something that we really need very specifically and quickly. So lots of ways that people can give. Yeah, you're welcome.
I'm wondering, are there any shelters on the range or surrounding areas, or do people end up coming to you?
That is such a good question. I was just at a conference, just came back from the conference, and that's where all of our statewide programs connect. And we were talking about, the state of the economy, and, we just had a big competitive grant round, and during the grant application process, the funder told us, look around the room because some of you won't be here next year because the funding is just not available. And we already feel that because we are the largest shelter north of the Twin Cities and south of the Canadian border. So we serve the entire Arrowhead region of the state with just our shelter alone. There is an advocacy program on the range called Advocates for Family Peace. So we're constantly talking to them, and if they have somebody who's really interested in getting to the shelter, we coordinate. Okay, well, we'll meet you in Virginia. You're coming down from International Falls. Perfect. We'll see you there. Let's, we'll get lunch together at the fabulous Mexican restaurant that's still in the Thunderbird Mall. So, we coordinate, but it's a pretty large geographic area, and folks that live in very rural communities have a very, very hard time leaving. So we always, do everything we can to reach them as soon as we can. Any other questions? Thank you. Thank you all so much for having me. I really appreciate the time we spent together today. Thank you. Thank you. My sister was staying at my house, and so
You have dogs and.
I do. I have 2 little pugs and then a foster fail. She's a foster fail. I was fostering her, and then I fell in love. So now she's living with us for the rest of her life, and she's half German short hair pointer, half beagle, and the official name for that kind of dog is a boingle. And it's exactly what it sounds like. She's like Tigger. She's so much energy. So, oh my gosh.
Do they all get along?
They all, mostly. Yeah.
I mean, those dogs do.
Yes. So my sister was staying at her house, and she was like, oh my gosh. And she was like, what do you need me to get? I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. I have everything I need. Just get my computer ready.
Yeah.
So she grabbed it for me. So,
You made it home first and then.
yeah.
Yeah.
But so happy to be here. Thank you again so much for the invitation. Oh, thank you for saying that. Oh.
So is it a good connection to have, now, the person?
Jackie?
Jackie.
Yes.